Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and today I'll be reading some more from Lesson 16 in Professor Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, annotated, revised, and edited by Professor Spira. Today we will look at the section called a, quote, square meal substitute. Before a crisis, during or shortly after, or to satisfy a craving for wrong food, especially rich in fat, you may take this once in a while. While it is too rich, it is much less harmful than a square meal and will be found to be very enjoyable. So just dissecting that, let's see what we have. Before a crisis, the word healing crisis is something a lot of naturopathic folks use. Sometimes brothers and sisters in the Mucusless Diet Healing System community have used the concept of a fall, a period of great elimination. These are words that sometimes basically mean you're going through it. And it could be any number of different symptoms, whether you're blowing your nose, you got a cold and flu-like symptoms, anxieties, whatever symptoms you have. When it gets to a crisis point, when it gets to a point where it's like, whoa, this is getting a little bit much, a little bit scary, Ehret's saying, here's a way that you can hit the brakes. Here's a way for you to slow things down. Now, sometimes there are folks, so keep in mind, you can be at a point of no return in terms of your elimination. That's why I suggest and emphasize transition so much, because there's a lot of folks that have been doing the all fruit approaches and some of the more aggressive fasting protocols, and they get themselves to a point of no return where now they're in a perpetual crisis state. And that's why, and they want to blame it on the fruit, and they want to blame it on, I've been, this, and, I got to, go back to eating meat and eggs and all that kind of stuff. That's because at that point, once you get to a point of no return, now you're in a perpetual crisis point. You're not going to feel good, and you're going to blame it on whatever it is. That's why I'm saying check out these lessons, check out this information, because this will allow you to be as gradual and evolutionary as you need to be. So before crisis point, if you feel like, okay, this is getting a bit much, and you can feel that the elimination is just, it's like, man, I'm just not feeling too good for too long a period of time. It's one thing when you're going through something for a couple days, but when it starts getting day after day after day and it's a grind, you gotta roll it back. You gotta, and again, that's why a lot of the raw food type of folks have trouble with the mucusless diet, because they want to be raw, but then when they hear that, well, mucusless is an even higher level, then, well, I want to be raw and mucusless. That's an incredibly high level. That's a very high level, and it's something that you can do for short periods of time, but it's I've just not seen somebody be able to attain raw mucusless and sustain it for long periods of time and be totally mucusless by Ehret standards. There's people that can be raw and then do the avocado kind of, 6 avocados a day and, and that type of thing, which I'm not, if that's the lifestyle you want to lead, that's fine. It's just not the Mucusless Diet Healing System, according to, again, as we're going to talk, as we'll get into even here, Ehret again emphasizes that how dangerous fats are in general. But that in certain quantities at certain periods of time, again, a square meal substitute. That a lot of, like I said, if you want to use avocados in transition, fine, but that's like a square meal substitute. That's kind of like this type of section in terms of really slowing things down. But so that's the grated coconut mixture eaten with applesauce, stewed prunes, or sweetened apricots. So that's one option. Another option, very ripe bananas, or if unripe, then baked, will be found to satisfy when unusually hungry. So here we go, baked banana. You hear me talking about it all the time. I didn't just make it up. It comes right out the Mucusless Diet Healing System. Lesson 16. Very ripe bananas, or if unripe, then baked, will be found to satisfy when unusually hungry. Other kinds of grated nuts or nut butters may be served once in a while for this purpose, but are too rich in protein and will produce, if continually used, mucus and uric acid. So again, we're not saying never have any kind of nuts, or never have any kind of nut butter, or never, we're not, or you know, or never have an avocado, or never, we're not rigid like that. It's just have a perspective about what it is. If it's a mucus forming item, if it's a fat containing item, if it's starchy, just know what it is, and you know, take responsibility for that, but don't obsess about it. Don't have to be worrying like, oh man, I'm not clean, I gotta be clean. It's like, this is not about that. This is about you eat these foods, you use this, let this stuff go through your body and let your body transform. Give your body time to transform around these things. I mean, we gotta realize the significance of what we're trying to do here in terms of trying to take ourselves back into a mucusless state. This is no small feat, and it's nothing to be like, oh, and like again, the raw food person will come by. We just had someone in the forum today that had some things to say negative about somebody's post. They posted up some food that was just a classic mucusless diet right out the book, and here they come like, oh, the diet is bunk. The diet is like, first of all, I don't even know why you're in here. If that's your opinion, then obviously this ain't this group. But that's that pus and mucus, though, that they like, you feel like you want to go and like you just gotta say something. You gotta try to, you know, tear people down, and you know, I'm like, yeah, like you, this ego trip of making you feel better. It's just, this ain't about that either. If you like this path, come down this path and use it to try to heal yourself, try to, you know, heal your family, whatever. But this, but I digress. Improved, quote, cooked vegetables. Only one kind of cooked vegetable should be used at one meal. So right here, and this is a guideline where one kind of cooked vegetable should be used at one meal. Now, if you have a couple cooked, you know, it's not the end of the world. You know, I look at this as a guideline, but it gives you some insight into, again, how systematic this diet truly is, and how important these type of guidelines are to get to move in the direction of them. So, you know, are you out the diet because you had 2 cooked vegetables in a meal, or 3, or even 4? No. But again, this is that guideline. So if you get in the habit of, okay, I got this big salad, and then I have some baked zucchini, or I have some steamed broccoli, or I have some steamed cabbage, or whatever, you know, that one thing added to the salad, this is just good guideline. It's just a good practice. Like I said, if after you practice a while, maybe you mix a couple different kinds of cooked vegetables along with the, as you'll see later on in some of the suggestions, does combine more than just one. But again, this is the guideline. This is what we try to move toward over time. And you don't always get there, and it's totally fine. Nobody is over your shoulder like, you had 2 cooked vegetables, you're out the group, I'm sorry. Like, nah, this is, we're not, you know, rawfoodist.com that just kick people out of groups just because they confessed. They sat in the confessional and they confessed, I ate a cooked piece of food, you are banished from this group, never return. It's like, man, that whole vibe just makes me sick. I just, to be honest, I'm sorry. I mean, that's just some egotistical kind of, anyway, again, I'm just getting off track here. I apologize. Lesson 16, improve cooked vegetables. Only one kind of cooked vegetable should be used at one meal. It may be eaten either cold or warm and mixed with green salads and raw vegetables. If cabbage, carrots, turnips, beets, cauliflower, onions, etc. are slowly stewed in very little water, or best, if carefully baked, they become sweeter, which proves that the carbohydrates are developed into grape sugar, more or less, and the mineral salts are not destroyed and not extracted. This is in fact an improvement and not a waste. So Ehret, a point Ehret tries to always make, it's not about being raw or cooked or not cooked or this or that. It's all relative to specific situations. For certain vegetable items, you would never want to eat them raw. But when cooked, they are, quote, improved. So what does that mean? Cabbage, carrots, turnips, beets, cauliflower, onions, etc., slowly stewed in a very little water, or best baked carefully, they become sweeter, which proves that the carbohydrates are developed into grape sugar more or less, and the mineral salts are not destroyed and not extracted. So again, so here, mineral salts, throwing that out there. There's a lot of people say, well, what about the minerals and all this? Ehret talks about that. Ehret talks, but the concept is, it's coming from a different perspective than the way that the concept is sometimes used today. But this idea of mineral salts is there to help eliminate. It's about an elimination. You don't want to cook out all of the mineral salts of the vegetable, because the purpose of that vegetable, coming from a mucusless diet perspective, is for elimination. You cook out the starch part. Cook out the part of it that is going to create acids and mucus. You essentially cook that out. Something like carrots. They're a little starchy, but if you cook them, if you overcook them, then that's not good, because you're getting rid of too many of the mineral salts. They're not going to eliminate well. It's not going to go through your system. It's not going to act as an intestinal broom. That's the whole point of the vegetables. And when you combine cooked with the right raw vegetables, you can create a wonderful intestinal broom. And that's the point. While at the same time being satisfied with what you're eating, having enough to where you're full. Like I said, I'm not into where people are like, I'm hungry. It's like, well, then eat something, because we're not telling you not to eat. There's a systematic way. If you're going through that where, oh, I'm hungry, or it's hard for you to eat 2 meals a day and all this kind of stuff, you're probably not ready to fast yet, obviously, because when you fast, those experiences are different. It's not it's like, oh man, I'm really hungry. If you're in that type of mode where you're trying to force yourself not to eat, that's definitely not what this is about at all. So, but we'll get to the fasting lessons a little later on down the road. So in winter, canned foods may be used as a substitute for fresh ones. I'm gonna read that again. In winter, canned foods may be used as a substitute for fresh ones. Now, I understand canned is not the best, okay? But if you are living in some place where all you have access to is canned fruits and vegetables, or you're living someplace or in an environment or something where maybe you don't got a whole lot of money, maybe all you can afford is the cheapest of the cheap cans, just look at the ingredients and do the best that you can. Because there's no excuse not to be on the transition, in my opinion. Definitely is not a money excuse. You can be at different levels, and then you make decisions within your life to take steps toward different things. I mean, me and Brother Ehret was talking today. In the city where I live, they have a free store food bank that has produce, that basically has produce and fruits and vegetables that restaurants and places didn't use, and so they donated it. And so homeless people or people that don't have a whole lot of money can go and actually get produce. A lot of cities don't necessarily have that. That's something that every place should have, is be it for people to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Idealistically, that's where it's at. But if that's not the case, then I'd rather have somebody eat a can of peas than a can of Spam, or a can of green beans than a can of anchovies. So this is just rational and being real, because sometimes there's some people that's in our that's in the plant-based community that you don't know homeless people maybe, or you don't know folks that really are having that tough time. I mean, some of you maybe you do, or maybe you're going through it. But there's a lot of folks that aren't, and so they get into this like, well, it's got to be a certain way, it's got to be organic, or it's got to never have any packaged thing. It's like, man, this thing is real out here. If you feel that way, all I can say is you gotta study the state of this world better. You gotta really understand how hard things are for a lot of people in this world. Resources are hoarded by the sickest among us. The sickest people on this planet hoard what we need to heal. And so we have to take steps in order to fend for ourselves and do whatever is necessary. By any means necessary, we got to get ourselves together. And if you're living in a situation, in a place that don't necessarily have a bunch of supermarkets or have a lot of stuff, all there is in the store is some green peas in a can. Do what you need to do. And so that's why I say this is not a rigid thing. When people come, there's a lot of people that try to come from these different philosophies and they try to bring a very rigid thing. Like well, never, under no circumstances, no human should ever have a piece of packaged food or a piece of processed food. I mean, idealistically, that would be beautiful. And we need to take measures into our own hands to build our own communities, grow our own food, so we can make that possible for those of us that's interested in that. But we gotta be realistic about what people are going through all around the world, and that this is not an elitist type of system in terms of, well, you got to have a bunch of money to do it or something like that, or live in a certain place. This is something that you can start to take steps wherever you are. I mean, I firmly believe that. Whatever your money situation is, wherever you are, you can take steps. If you got a food card, you got food stamps. I've been there. My family's been there. A lot of people I know has been there. You have the option. You can go through the line and get Coke and get candy and all kinds of stuff, or you can get $100 worth of fruit, $100 worth of fresh produce and vegetables. So the choice is really yours. I see that all the time. Folks that come through with the food card and they got a thing of just straight garbage that's on there, and it's sad. It's a sad situation. But fruits and vegetables, it just has to be a priority. And once it's a priority, then the way you think changes, your value system change, and no matter where you are on the spectrum in terms of finances and parts of the world where you live or whatever, tune into this information, because that's what I'm saying. This can be gotten to by everybody. Just with that. And so again, it's like the guideline. And so in winter, canned foods may be used as a substitute for fresh ones. So in winter, but you could change in winter to in economic situations, in apocalyptic situations. If if we end up having a nuclear holocaust with, don't let me get into politics. Let me just stop right here. let me stop right there. I differ from the raw food fanatics. He's calling raw food people fanatics. I differ from the raw food fanatics because the food value is not important in a diet of healing. It is of more importance that the patient should and shall enjoy his or her change of diet during the transition until their tastes and conditions have improved. Can I get an amen? People act, I just hear so much stuff every day. It's like people have never read this book, but they claim to have. How much clear? This is so clear. I differ from the raw food fanatics because the food value is not important in the diet of healing. To translate that, food value is what Ehret sort of equates the modern concepts of nutrition. You know, where okay, you have to have certain qualities and certain things have to be in the vegetables. I mean, you know, Ehret just doesn't get into that. If you want to believe in that, that's fine. You know, no, I'm not telling somebody, you are not allowed to believe in Western standard nutrition. If you want to believe in those things and you want to do that math, I know very few people that actually sit down and do the math that you're supposed to do in terms of, well, I have 30 grams of zinc in this item, 1 calorie, you know, like very few people really sit down and do that math, and the people that do don't seem any healthier. They still don't not get cold and flu-like symptoms when they're going through, just because they added up all of their, you know, zinc and whatever was in their food, the food values. So that's what Ehret's talking about there when he says food values. That's equating and kind of getting into the nutrition theory type of thing. It is of more importance that the patient should and shall enjoy his or her change of diet during the transition until their tastes and conditions have improved. And I'm going to leave it there. I thank you for tuning in, and until next time, peace, love, and breath.